Nyima Tenzin, a soldier from the Special Frontier Force, a unit of the Indian Army, was martyred in Pangong Tso Lake on August 30th this year. Holding placards of the Free Tibet movement, hundreds of people from the Tibetan community gathered to bid farewell to the brave heart. The Tibetans expressed that they have lived for the love of Tibet and will die for the love of India and to free Tibet one day. Amid the ongoing standoff between India and China, the Indian Army hoisted the Free Tibet flag at the LAC. This messaging by the Indian Army is opening up a whole new front with China, which could further aggravate the tensions. The Chinese have been backing Pakistan in its attempt to disturb peace in Jammu and Kashmir. India so far took a fairly moderate stand when it came to accepting Tibet Autonomous Region as part of the People's Republic of China. But the schematics have changed globally. Today, India has the backing of the US and the US is in direct conflict with China. Rest of the world is also pushing back China on post-COVID crisis. India's policy of non-intervention has changed now, and this would pose new problems for China. China thought that it would continue pressing India through its close aid Pakistan, but this is a new spoke in the wheel. The Indian Army started setting up a new force about 2 decades ago. The Special Frontier Force is made up of 1.2 lakh refugee Tibetans. They are responsible for operations in Ladakh. These Tibetans are natives of the mountainous region and are able to operate with ease. This is going to cause more trouble for China, which has been facing accusations globally for crushing the independence of Tibet. We have now seen where this conflict is going to go. It may well turn out to be a fairly open, violent conflict with multiple players taking part. It may not necessarily be confined to line of actual control. It will expand to South China Sea as far as Africa, where China has operations. The Chinese port in Sri Lanka is likely to also come under attack if the conflict expands. China, in a statement 2 days ago, warned India of its might, but forgot that expansion may be good for economic growth, but it also means protecting multiple fronts in an ongoing open war. New Delhi Bureau, Democracy News Live.
Mahatma Gandhi has said, and I quote, "What difference does it make to the dead, the orphans, and the homeless, whether the mad destruction is wrought under the name of totalitarianism or in the holy name of liberty and democracy?" Good evening, everyone. I welcome you to our daily broadcast, It Matters. Today, we are discussing the thousands of Chinese and Indian forces that have been locked in a standoff along various parts of the line of actual control in Ladakh since May. Despite the diplomatic meetings, there is no sight of a resolution of the dispute. But today, we're not just discussing the standoff. We're discussing the freedom of Tibet. It was in 1950 when the Chinese troops invaded Tibet. The Dalai Lama and other Buddhists took refuge in India. China is an aggressor, and the Indians have helped train and arm the Tibetans to form a whole series of battalions that will bring freedom for Tibet from China. The other day, when a Tibetan soldier of the Indian Army died, the army gave him honors, wrapped his body with an Indian flag and the Tibetan flag. The message is clear and it's on the wall that LAC is not only a non-negotiable, but Tibet must be freed from the Chinese occupation. India has never taken an aggressive stand like this before. All old treaties are out of the window. China must ready itself for an all-out Indian offensive if it ventures towards India again. The Tibetans have also had enough of the Chinese aggression, and a large part of their population is now ready to fight, capable of operating in high altitudes. The conflict, if it unfolds, it will be much larger and extend to South China Seas and Africa and Sri Lanka and wherever Chinese have operations. This also will put a spoke in the wheel to the whole idea of this road going towards Europe. The thoughts are large, but that's what we have to remember. In a globalized world, when we want to operate globally, we must take people along. It's not going to be a one-sided affair. People are not going to cow down. Even one small spoke in the wheel can throw your whole strategy and plan out of the window. I'm joined today by Tenzin Sindhu. He is in exile. He's a Tibetan writer and a free Tibet activist. Let me start with you, Tenzin. As you see this whole change of the Indian stand, what do you think is going to unfold from here?
For the first time, we are in a very exciting moment where India seems to be slowly unraveling its deep nursed dream that Tibet could be free and independent once again. And India could be relieved of the Chinese pressure that India has been facing for past 70 years. India had been maintaining a diplomatic distance with China, and India hoped in between. And some of the political parties they try to play their own games by uh, making make believe benefits with Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai and Chinese investments. So from Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai to present day Chinese possible investments, there's a whole sham relationship between India and China. In reality, neither the Indians nor the Chinese believed each other or trusted each other. They had always suspected the one or the other, someday or the other, they are going to invade or cause trouble. And for India, one of the first signs was 1962 war into Arunachal Pradesh, which they immediately retracted without any reason. So therefore, India today, especially after the 15th June Galwan Valley massacre, India is an awakened country. Now, every Indian knows that the true danger is not Pakistan, but China. But the China is playing uncle to Pakistan's military build-up and economic build-up and all the terrorism that India has been facing all these years. So the real enemy is now found out, and George Fernandez was right to call China enemy number one. And today, India knows uh, it is late, but nonetheless, it's time that India is taking first important steps today.
One of the things that we have to remember is that the Tibetans have always wanted India to take this stand. The Indian government took a back seat, took a shortcut, if I want to call it that, and didn't take a stand enough because it thought it was trying to maintain peace in the region. But post the Galwan crisis, I think there is a huge understanding that this is not going to resolve on its own. India will have to take action, and if India doesn't take action, Chinese are going to continue taking action. The United States is the new player and the new person on the block who's out there to help. Certainly, it's been very, very involved in India's strategy building and India's thinking on how it's going to go about this. I don't know how much the Americans have reached out to the Tibetans. Joining me is Rinzin Choden. She represents the Students for Free Tibet in India. She's the executive director. Rinzin, can you tell me, have there been, back channel talks with other countries as well, apart from India?
Uh, Definitely. First of all, I'm the national director. Again, so yeah, as you have clearly said, uh, in terms of the way in which the table has been turned against China, especially the current given scenario of this whole pandemic situation, and we are, I think, right to call this whole man-made created pandemic as Wuhan originated CCP made virus. People have called that in several articles and news. So, because of this, now this whole kind of attention and sort of attitude towards Chinese Communist government has changed in terms of international platform. So, definitely, like I think China is kind of facing its own brunt of misinformation, censoring when this whole pandemic started. So yeah, we can see that tables are turning now.
So, explain to me, we've heard about what China has done, But explain to me what kind of pressures the Tibetans deal with on a daily basis. And there are lakhs of Tibetans in India. Explain to me the circumstances they have gone through in the last 70, 60 years, I would say, of existing in India, living in exile.
I would like to give a personal anecdote. My dad is a former SFF company leader, and as soon as he heard the news about the news of late martyred Mr. Nyima Tenzin, he actually cried, and I could definitely and totally understand the kind of sentiment he shares with uh, the news. So, as a daughter of former army as well as a third generation Tibetan born and living in India, I have seen how the movement has kind of picked up, especially after 2008. And at the same time, when the 2008 uprising happened inside Tibet, calling out and protesting against China, it was really inspirational to see the younger generation, especially in Tibet, those who have never seen an independent Tibet, those who have never seen His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, yet their courage, their spirit, their determination was commendable. And seeing that made me feel like, okay, as a Tibetan living in a democratic country like India, it is not just my moral obligation, but it is also my duty to uh, amplify the voices of my Brethren Tibetan brothers and sisters who are currently suffering under Chinese occupation. So that's why, for the last 70 years, the whole momentum of Tibet's freedom movement has gained or has accelerated and gained much international attention. And I would like to take this opportunity to also request Indian government and also remind that it is now high time for India to revisit its one China policy. In fact, it is the correct time for Indian government to reject one China policy and say it upfront to China that enough is enough and that we will not take it anymore, and that taking the lead among other South Asian countries, India should hold China accountable for all the atrocities, all the genocides that's happening not just in Tibet but also in East Turkestan. And now we have seen the recent news of southern Mongolia, where they have by like forcefully changed the medium of teaching language. So these are something that we have been seeing. So I urge Indian government to recognize Tibet as historically independent country. This is the high time and this is the right time.
Rinzin makes a very good point. The Indian government, all this while, has not taken a real stand. It's, been hawing in what side it needs to take, what it needs to say. But what Rinzin is telling is that the Indian government must have the moral capability of standing up for what's right. It cannot hide behind other countries, thinking that the other countries can say it, but we are going to play it safe. It's not time for that. But I think uh, putting the Free Tibet flag on the borders, wrapping the soldier in a Free Tibet flag, it all is symbolism. Indian government is kind of making it clear to China. But what Rinzan is saying, beyond this, you need to go out and make those announcements. It's not going to be just symbolism, it needs to be real brass tacks. Sonam, you're the General Secretary of the Tibetan Youth Congress. Explain to me this perspective of the Youth Congress of the Tibetans. What do they feel? What is missing and what more needs to be done going forward?
Thank you for having us. And for the past 70 years, we have been telling the world about the China's aggressiveness and oppressiveness policies which are implemented inside Tibet. And now I think with coming of the coronavirus and with the implementation of the new policies, hardline policies in Hong Kong, and then the attacking and annexation of Indian borders, I think the world must have learned a lesson by now that China cannot be trusted and should acknowledge the aggressiveness and oppressive policies, and it's very sad that China keeps on continuing their aggressive policies on Indian borders, and they have attacked several times. And this time they have killed, and our mighty Nyima Tenzin has died while defending the Indo-Tibet border. And this would not be the last time that China would do such things. So uh, I, on behalf of Tibetan Youth Congress, pay our condolences to the family, and we also pay our respect and utmost appreciation to the other forces who are standing strong and firmly against the Chinese aggressive forces on the border area. So I think it's high time for India government to change its status quo into Indo-Tibet border, because historically it's Indo-Tibet border, and India should revisit, as Rinzila has said, revisit one China policy, and which only could bring a safe and secure border region.
Point, that's the Indo-Tibetan border and not the LAC, and it should be converted. India should announce the change of what it calls that line. Tenzin, let me go back to you. Tell me, what is the first thing you would like to see happening now? Is there some action required from Tibetan youth and on the Tibetan end?
Well, I think I've been hardened by political activism. I do not believe in charity, nor do I believe in begging. India has an interest in Tibet, and therefore India is hosting and providing facilities to the Dalai Lama and 1 lakh Tibetans living in India. India's treatment with to other refugees, like the refugees from Burma and Sri Lanka, are different, and that also talks about India's interest in those countries. Um, and one of the most important reasons why India has provided, firstly, the refuge, and also um, support to the Tibetan freedom movement in a covert manner, where it is seen as humanity, but India's support to Tibet has not only nurtured and sustained the freedom movement, but has given the Tibetans space to set up a democratic society and also educate the younger generation Tibetans in their own traditional culture, at the same time receive modern education. And this has today become truly the useful tool India needs against China. So the Special Frontier Force, set up in 1962, was set up to fight China, not to be used in Bangladesh war or Kargil war as it happened, but truly in the goal that had worked out. For example, on the night of 29th, or early morning of 30th, and even today, SFF soldiers are today manning the key important positions in the south of Pangong Tso, and more deployment has already happened. So what I see, what I need, what I think India must do immediately, is, because China has been questioning, even from the recent times, China has been questioning the India's claim over Arunachal Pradesh, and India needs to answer China, and that answer must consist of the word Tibet. Because India's basis, historical, legal, documentational basis of India's claim over Arunachal Pradesh is this historical treaty signed between independent Tibet and British India in the month of March and in the year 1914, what is called McMahon Treaty, which was initially 863 kilometers, and today it is a little more than 2,000 kilometer long border of entire Arunachal Pradesh. And China is claiming entire Arunachal Pradesh, and they may lead a military aggression just like the one they did in
Galwan.
Galwan Valley. So
Yeah.
therefore, India's response isn't Tibet. Tibet is India's key to China's problem?
I hear what you're saying, Tenzin, and I like to slightly differ with you here as well. I think India's interest in Tibet is not just strategic. I think the kind of support and the kind of existence the Indians have provided Tibetans, it was more to do with the heart as well. Uh, India is very aligned to the whole Buddhist thought process. India considers Buddhism very much part or parcel of its existence. So I think the whole effort by India, even so early on in its independence era, in 1950 and 1956 and 59, India was a very, very young country, incapable of even looking after its interests properly. But I think India put out that support because India truly believed in protecting the Tibetans, because it thought of Tibetans as one of their own. And I think if you see anywhere in India, whether you're based in Dharamsala or you're in Delhi or wherever you live, uh, I think there is a great degree of acceptance for the Tibetans in the people's heart. Governments can host, but at the end of the day, it's the people who accept or not. And I think Tibetans are very, very accepted in Indian society, in schools and colleges, wherever you go. So I think it is slightly beyond just a strategic move, but at the same time, I think India also morally believes that Tibet belongs to the Tibetans. And it so happens that India has always invested India's belief in the Tibetans as one of their own. That's why they were brought and made part of the Indian army. And it wasn't, looked at as a different force. I think the same stands for the Nepalese as well. India has a similar view of Nepal as well. So that difference, but again, what you're saying, the point you're making, it is a great opportunity for making sure that China needs to be pushed back. I think India has worked towards it. The building of the battalion, creating the commando force and a mountainous force was very much part of the strategy. And it was a well thought out strategy. It's gone on for over 2 decades now, that the whole plan was executed and the soldiers were trained so that they can go and man a land which really truly belongs to the Tibetans. So that being the perspective, now let's look at this from the Chinese perspective. What do you think the Chinese will do? Any one of you can take it. Why don't you take this, Tenzin?
Yeah, I think at the moment there are many different points of view. The reason why China is making this aggression, and especially now, and that too at Ladakh border. Um, and now when India is weakest because of the pandemic, the effect of it, and closing down of Indian economy has fallen in the minus. So that's a strategic moment when China is making that kind of attack. And recently, China launched a new map of its borders, not just India, but all across the South Asian borders and also into Southeast Asia. In that new map, China has included entire region of Ladakh as part of China. Now that sends out a scary signal to India. Is this the map they want to achieve in the next 1 or 2 years? And is Galwan Valley attack the first initial step? It sounds scary. For as someone who was born in India, it's unthinkable that any country or would do that kind of attack on India. And as an Indian, I cannot think of an India without Ladakh.
Sure.
So therefore, Indian Prime Minister was correct in calling China expansionist, and in China is doing it. And now that it is so very clear in front of entire population of India, it is time that India must take concrete steps, and it's not just waving flags, but concrete steps in securing the border. And securing the border, I personally think there is no military solution, because both the countries have nuclear weapons. There may be skirmishes like this, and this will continue, and especially worse during winter. But India must take steps where China is weak, and China's weakest points is Tibet, because Tibet is 2.5 million square kilometer of land. And then there is also the East Turkestan, which is 1.8 million square kilometer of land, Mongolia, which is 1.2 million square kilometer of land. If India, um, you know, questions one China policy and starts to support and recognize Tibet, East Turkestan, Southern Mongolia as free and independent country as they were, then China can actually question, because India can question China's 60% of its landmass as
Sure.
occupied
No,
country. And
absolutely.
this
No,
will
I hear you.
distort
I hear you,
China
Tenzin.
hugely.
I have a question for Sonam. Sonam, do you think there are other countries that need to stand up and talk for a free Tibet right now? India is taking the actions it is, but are you expecting other countries, large nations, to come and speak up right now?
Yes, we are grateful to the Indian government for hosting us for the last 70 years, and we know that India will keep on extending the moral support to Tibetans, and we request Indian government to gain more support on politically on Tibet issue, and from the outside world with coming of the coronavirus, I think most of the world who support, who respect the freedom and democracy, who respect the lives of the common people, they are standing against the Communist Party right now. And now it's time to bring up the Tibet issue, the just cause of Tibet against the China, so as to make them, pay for the lives that they have uh, taken away because of this coronavirus, and because of the just cause of Tibet, I think the international organizations who are standing for the just cause, for the freedom, for the human rights, they have the hand to catch over for Tibet cause. And if they are supporting, if they are standing for democracy, for the freedom, for the human rights, then they have to support the just cause of Tibet. And I know there are a lot of countries who are supporting us, and I want them to support us more on politically,
So,
so that
one
we
of the
can
things
make.
is absolutely, Sonam, I hear what you're saying. Now, what the Tibetans have continued to express and say is that enough of the backroom, support. If the United States, England, Japan, Australia, these countries need to stand up and speak for the Tibetans. The Tibetans have spoken, the Indians have made it loud and clear. They're going to continue making those sounds, but the other nations need to speak up. If you don't speak up, don't think you're standing up for freedom. So, Rinzin, closing statements from you. What do you see happening in the next few weeks, and what do you want to see internationally happening to the Free Tibet cause?
Uh, yep, next couple of weeks gonna be quite intensive, and especially like Tibetan like me, having people or your own Tibetans at the border, you are always in anticipation, like what could happen, what could go wrong, about their safety and security. But at the same time, as someone being born and raised in India, I feel I'm as much as Indian as I'm Tibetan, and seeing what China is doing at the border, especially at this current rate, I cannot dare to see, and there's no way I could see same thing happening to India, my second home. So therefore, as Tibet activists, we are doing as much as we can in terms of showing the true color, or trying to highlight the true nature of Chinese Communist Party, its expansionist policy, and what they have been doing to Tibet. It's now they are doing to other occupied countries. So at the same time, that's why as Jundula earlier said, India has the highest stake when it comes to Tibet issue. Therefore, it's high time that India should take up the lead and challenge and hold accountable like CCP, and at the same time, you know, be this exemplary at this current moment in history, and to be right side of the history, recognizing Tibet as an independent country. Until and unless Tibet is not free, China will continue to do this or repeat this maneuver of bully and blackmailing, threatening. So in Hindi, we have been saying this slogan as long as I can remember. In every protest we have, "Tibet ki azadi, Bharat ki suraksha." And on that note, yeah, stop here.
Tenzin, give me your closing statements. Do you agree also with what Rinzin is saying?
Well, the next couple of months, because of winter, is going to be extremely um, stressful, both on for the Tibetans, also for Indians. But now that we recognize that our cause is one, the cause of independence of Tibet, which will bring freedom for Tibet and security for India. And now is the time for India to seriously work on its policies, its China policies. So all that facade, trust, hopeful of Chinese investment, all that is gone. India has now decided on Atma Nirbhar policy, and India needs to start work on that. At the same time, to secure India's borders, especially from China. SFF soldiers is only 5,000. We need to increase that. There are ex-soldiers who could come back to serve, and we need much more number of that in the borders. It's not just being Tibetans, because Tibetans have special extra capability to adapt in breathing and doing physical work at such high altitude and extreme climate like minus 20 and 30. So that's an advantage of being Tibetans, because that topography is Tibetan homeland. This is something that India should do immediately, and India could take the lead in stringing together policies of other countries like United States and European Union countries and Australia and Japan in leading this campaign against China, who has caused so much of death and destruction because of its wrong policies, and also its belligerence against international communities. Now is the time to really make China pay for what they have been doing, inflicting on others. At the same time, hope that China changes from within. People of China who have been denied of freedom and democracy, they needed to be empowered, and therefore a technical thing that is needed to be done is break China's firewall, and this can truly open up the Chinese people.
You know, I remember a few years ago, I was this is when the 2008 uprising was happening. I was at the Press Club of India, and I met a lot of refugees who just walked hundreds of kilometers across glaciers because they were escaping
I
the
was there.
Chinese soldiers. You were there. And those pictures were shown to us. There were a lot of those people, and the Chinese soldiers had shot many of them, and many of them had
Mm,
died on their way in.
right.
Some of them made it across, and I looked at those pictures and I said, this is no way to treat people of a land, even if these people were leaving China, Tibet, wherever they were leaving to come to India because they were escaping the regime which was suppressing them and killing them. This was not how you would handle a population. A very bad strategy. I think it's coming to bite them. And the Chinese will have to remember that whatever may happen, Tibetans at the end of the day are a separate country, they're a free country, and they must be freed. Tenzin, Sonam, Rinzin, thank you for joining me for the show. I think this is only starting now, that the Free Tibet movement at many, many levels is going to take on a full form. There are a lot of people who are tuning into our show and writing about it. From the next show onwards, we're going to begin taking in questions as well. So thank you for joining me. And I think the whole fight against China is beginning now, and it will turn out to be a pretty bad one. That's my sense, but I don't think there is a choice. So thank you. Good night and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.